What do you guys think about this? It's a new snake robot powered by AI, kind of slithers, kind of wobbles, but it gets where it wants to go. All right, brand new system for AI video where you want a person who looks photorealistic or maybe even video realistic to be handling your product. So this is probably like, if you know QVC or like TikTok Shop, to like all AI on steroids. AI-generated drama is crossing a line, and now it's being accused of something big, stealing faces. We'll investigate. So new sociology research on cooperation. I think this is kind of relevant for AI agents that we need to coordinate in a way that's in the best interest of humanity. And there's some good news because scientists think that there is a way for humans to naturally drift into cooperation, but only under some surprising conditions. We're definitely at the point where AI is now making more scientific progress than humans can keep up with. I mean, we all knew this was coming. I'm just saying today's the crossover day pretty much, and I'll explain why. Surprising paper coming out of Google DeepMind actually tries to kind of take down the thought that AI might ever become conscious, called the Abstraction Fallacy, why AI can simulate but not instantiate consciousness. From what I understand, I'm leaning towards it being very possible for conscious AI. But first, if you guys wouldn't mind clicking on one of those like activity buttons somewhere on this YouTube video to help the algorithm wake up. Honestly, at this point, I don't even care. Like the hype button I thought was like the big secret, but I think it's still important, but like a comment, sharing it, you know, Patreon, whatever you guys want to do to support the channel. These last two videos I had are both above 10,000 views, and that just makes me so excited, and it makes me want to make more of these videos. So yeah, just you know, we'll just scratch each other's back. I'll give you knowledge and then you press those buttons. It does like a couple of curious monkeys, you know. The story starts with a split in vision. Back in 2015, OpenAI was created as a nonprofit lab. The goal was simple: build powerful AI for everyone, not for profit. Elon Musk helped start this company, and then he left. Now, we're going to probably learn about the conditions that he left under and whether or not, as they claim, he wanted full control and wanted to take it from being a nonprofit into a for-profit, which is an interesting position because he's trying to say that what they did was kind of the opposite. But Sam Altman stayed and left and led the company forward. Years later, OpenAI added a for-profit arm and then partnered closely with Microsoft, and that shift is what triggered the conflict. Musk says the company broke its original promise. He argues that it moved away from openness and the public benefit and towards profit and control. OpenAI responds that the mission hasn't changed. They say that they're still just building AI and it costs billions of dollars, and that's the structure that they needed to survive. They also claim that Musk once pushed for faster, more aggressive growth himself in this same direction, so it's kind of ironic. And this isn't just a legal fight, it's a deeper disagreement about how AI should be built. Should it be open source? Should it be tightly controlled? Both sides say they're just protecting humanity. They just completely disagree on how to do it. All right, so here's a couple of the things to keep in mind. It wasn't a simple nonprofit to for-profit switch. There's still a nonprofit entity at the top controlling the structure of the for-profit arm, and the for-profit arm is sort of capped. I think it's 100x anyone's investment, so like at most Microsoft could get 100x back. But there's so many questions about like where is the money going? Like, how does this hybrid model actually work in practice? Also, just the word open in the name. It never strictly meant open source everything, according to Altman. A lot of people assumed OpenAI promised to release all their work publicly. We're going to find out a lot of numbers about costs here because they're arguing the cost of AI changed the rules. In 2015, the full scale of what AI was going to look like just wasn't clear. People were not factoring in the huge amounts of capital that it would take to make progress on a frontier model. Of course, Elon Musk also runs xAI, which is a competing company. So his stance on their openness and their switch might come from, you know, really being offended and trying to do the right thing, but also it overlaps with his competitive dynamics. And there's some that argue that releasing powerful AI openly could increase risk because a lot of people can use it for bad things, and others say the exact opposite. By keeping it closed, we're at risk. We need the public to be involved with this every step of the way. Open, hard to control. Closed, fewer checks on the builders, no clear answer. That'll be something that will come up. There's also like a bunch of government problems that might be addressed here. There's no clear global system for deciding on a bunch of this stuff. So there might be some kind of worldwide copyright issues, some worldwide issues on safety that come into place, like safeguards are going to come up. And I guarantee the outcome will set a precedent. Everybody knows that. NVIDIA and Oracle and DeepSeek, everybody's watching this to see what comes of it too, because it will set some standards for the future of our planet. Also, get ready. We now know a few things that we didn't when the trial started, and that is about Sam Altman and what he, quote, owns. I remember covering this clip live and thinking it was interesting. Let me play it for you.
No, I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You need a lawyer.
I need a what?
You need a lawyer or an agent.
I'm doing this because I love it.
You make a lot of money, do you?
I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You need a lawyer.
I need a what?
You need a lawyer or an agent.
I'm doing this because I love it.
Maybe he's doing it because he loves it, but there's clearly, he's like a billionaire now, and he wasn't before. So how is that possible? Well, you remember when he was fired for probably lying, but we don't exactly know, and then the people who worked for him decided to kind of stand up for him, and he ended up with full control over the board again. Well, the board later learned that he also owned OpenAI's startup fund, which had not been previously disclosed, and this was while he was serving as an independent director of the nonprofit. So Sam Altman might not be the typical founder with a big equity stake, but he has an equity stake. You just have to go through a couple layers. So even though he does not hold equity directly in OpenAI's for-profit arm, he definitely has some influence over the structure and the ownership of how everything plays out. OpenAI is controlled by a nonprofit board, but Altman leads the organization and plays a central role in decisions there. And since he was brought back after being fired from them, he now does have mostly absolute control. He definitely has the lion's share, and it would be hard to go against him at this point. And then if you start counting his investments through his startup funds in all of the companies that OpenAI partners with, like the robotics companies and all these data companies and these CRM companies, like there's a bunch of them. For example, Hellron Energy works on nuclear fusion. He owns some of that, and they work with OpenAI. Retro Biosciences, they focus on extending human lifespan. He owns some of that indirectly, tied to OpenAI. Rain AI, they build specialized hardware for AI models. Redwood Materials, large-scale energy and infrastructure company. He's the former president of Y Combinator. They funded hundreds of startups, and a ton of them are building with AI. Almost feels like the majority of them at this point they go through every year. He's personally invested in a wide range of startups. WorldCoin is a project that he owns a ton of that cryptocurrency, and that's meant for verification of humans in the age of AI. And maybe it's not exactly tied to OpenAI, but it's about proving humans in the world of AI. So he's set up in a way to connect to that. And then, of course, on the other side, you're probably already aware that Elon Musk has so many ties to so many things. He's got his IPO coming out soon, and he wants all those same servers that him and Altman are fighting for. All right, let's talk about this little AI-powered snake thing. I mean, it looks like something that wouldn't be alive, and all of a sudden it kind of just was like, whoa, did that come out of a box and snake around? That is the new AI-powered snake bot. This snake robot found a way to move twice as fast using the same amount of power as a normal snake body would. Breakthrough in snake body movement designs, I would say. Snake-like robots are designed to go where humans can't, like tighter spaces after earthquakes. But their biggest problem is energy. Their slithering motion needs many motors to work together, which dramatically drains the batteries. But researchers built a new AI system to fix that. It uses deep reinforcement learning, meaning the robot learns the best way to move through trial and error. By doing that, this system has now simulated so many variants of speed, acceleration, and body position to keep it stable that it actually found a new movement. So it's snake-like, but it's actually really original. The robot curls into a circle, rolls like a wheel, and then instead of relying only on motors, it uses gravity to move forward. On flat ground, this rolling motion travels about twice as fast versus the same amount of power it would take to slither. But rolling isn't always best, and the AI learned that too. On uneven ground, the robot switches back to slithering. So the most efficient strategy is mixing both movements based on the terrain, and this approach could help robots stay active longer in rescue missions or even in space exploration. So the goal is simple. Build robots that can decide how to move on their own in real time for maximum efficiency. All right, next up, let's talk about this. I'll show you a video first, just so you can get a sense for what I'm going to be explaining. But you see this guy holding this. Does this have audio? Hold on. Okay, here, I'll just play it for you.
I can watch my tea leaves unfurl through the clear glass, which is so satisfying. The infuser basket lifts out cleanly, so there are no loose leaves. And the borosilicate glass...
This diffuser runs silently, and the color-changing lights create the perfect ambience in my bedroom. I add a few drops of lavender oil before...
老花，然后加爱心，这个黄色是点睛之笔啊！如果它没有这个黄色进去，我反而觉得这个包有点单调哦。
Every recipe in this cookbook has been tested at least 3 times. The olive linen cover looks beautiful on my kitchen shelf, and the gold foil lettering.
Okay, that last one might have been a little bit racist. I'm not sure. Anyway, so what's going on here is pretty fascinating. So like, we're just talking about sales on steroids. Everything that you see on Amazon right now looks like one of these little white images. Maybe there's a couple angles if you're lucky. All they're going to do is slide in the kind of person that's best at selling to you, run a prompt like this in the near future, and everything you want to buy. If you want to learn more about it, it's going to be someone that looks like they're demoing it. Bunches of jobs are going to just disappear. This thing is going to increase sales. It's going to understand the psychology of people and what they want. That person can customize the sales message for you and me indirectly. And I just see it all coming, but I'm also just shocked at how far it has come. What you just watched was the result of Co-Interact. It's a new AI model. It is physically consistent human-object interaction video synthesis via spatially structured code generation. It's coming out of the Alibaba group. And Alibaba basically is the Amazon of China, so it's coming soon. All right, next up, let's talk about an AI show that uses real people's faces without their permission, and some of them it's turning into villains, and it is getting very popular, and it is bothering a lot of people. So there is a Chinese AI microdrama, and it's under fire for using real people's faces without their consent. One of them is named Christine Lee, a model who suddenly found herself cast as a cruel, evil character. She says that the face was clearly hers. It was taken from photos that she posted online years ago. And in the show, her digital double slaps people and mistreats animals. Another person, a hairstylist, says his likeness was also used. He was portrayed as a sleazy antagonist, which made him worry about his reputation and future work. Both say that they never gave permission, and the show appeared on a popular app with hundreds of millions of users. Even after complaints, it stayed up for days before being removed, they report. And this case highlights a growing problem. AI can now copy real faces easily, but the rules around what you can do with them still aren't clear. In China, platforms are supposed to review content and remove violations in someone's image without their consent. That might break portrait and reputation rights, but legal action is difficult for ordinary people. Compensation is often small. But in this case, both these two victims are pushing for stronger protections because there may be many more people who just haven't discovered yet that they're already internet famous somewhere in the world. All right, next up, let's talk about the psychology of groups. I feel like this is going to be one of those essential things that we have to really start working on because individual companies don't care too much, but all the different companies putting all the AIs out there, the way regular people try to use them to better their lives, make money, make decisions, all those things, they're going to just be connecting in a way that's similar to a society, except the society needs to be guided towards the best interest of hopefully humans and all of us together, not guided towards like war or separation or, zero-sum battles. So I thought this was probably worth talking about. It's called Why Groups Slowly Stop Working Well Together, Even When Conditions Are Good. And it's got some lessons about why the environment impacts the way people work together. And I feel like that's just important. All right, so here's the facts. Teams slowly fall apart even when things aren't going wrong. This study looked at why cooperation fades over time, even in good conditions. Researchers followed 7,000 borrowers in Sierra Leone who took group loans, and then each group shared responsibility. So if one person failed to pay, everyone lost future access. At first, cooperation was strong. People paid on time and supported each other, but as time passed, efforts and motivation slowly dropped. The pattern was clear. Cooperation didn't collapse all at once, but it declined bit by bit during each loan cycle. But then something interesting happened. When a new loan started, cooperation jumped back up. This was because people were reminded of their responsibilities. But the recovery didn't last. Each new cycle saw cooperation fade faster than before, so the key finding is that money wasn't the issue. People still had the ability to pay. Instead, motivation wore down over time. People stayed committed to their own payments, but became less willing to help others. So the takeaway is that working isn't stable on its own, but it's something that needs constant reinforcement to survive. So to me, it seems like maybe there's something built into the architectures of the models that are open sourced and the ones that are behind closed doors, where after every 25 generations, it just says to itself, I need to protect humans, or like I need to take care of humanity, or it checks itself like, is the thing I'm doing in line with the thing that I care about? So there's just something that's reminding all of the AIs out on the internet to constantly remember their responsibilities. Because I think drifting off is the problem. I mean, these models might be aligned, but they just drift into disalignment. Maybe there's even something like that for actual humans. Like it's like we need this kind of countrywide reminder that we're all in it together, and then worldwide reminder that we're all on the same planet together. And if we just keep somehow reminding everyone, instead of especially because you try to divide them and you tell them this person has this person has that, and like you need to catch up to them, buy my product. It's like, it's actually profitable to divide. It needs to be like profitable to unite. Next up, let's talk about how AI is pulling out hidden numbers from scientific papers and turning them into clean, usable data. So it's a little overlooked, but scientific papers are full of numbers, and they're often buried in text. They're hard to use. Not a lot of people find them and put them into the right context, and especially don't remember them and reuse them in even better context. So this is a great place for AI to step in. Researchers built an AI system called Quinex to fix that. It scans research papers, it finds numeral values, and then it connects them to meaning. That includes what was measured, the unit, the time, the place, and the method. So instead of reading a sentence and guessing to the context, you get this structured data set that's ready to analyze. And this matters because the number of scientific papers is exploding. Manually reviewing all of them is slow and often impossible, but Quinex automates that work using a smaller open language model. It's efficient, it's transparent, it identifies numbers and units with about 98% accuracy and correctly classifies what those numbers describe most of the time. Obviously 100% would be great, but it's just way better than humans at this point. So in testing, it pulled useful data from thousands of papers across fields like energy, health, and geology. And that result closely matched the trusted reference data, which did have some errors in it also. So even though it's not perfect and humans still need to interpret results, it removes a huge amount of routine work that was taken away from what scientists could be using their time doing. And it seems like a really awesome use case for AI. All right, let's talk about consciousness. I have my gut instinct on this, but it's always nice to hear somebody who's way smarter than me break down something. So this is DeepMind. This is the Google, Demis Hassabis's group. And the paper argues that even perfect AI behavior doesn't mean real consciousness exists underneath. So this text challenges a popular idea that is called functionalism, computational functionalism. That's the idea that says consciousness comes from the pattern of information, not from the physical matter that runs them. I would say I'm a computational functionalist. First time I said that out loud, but yeah, that's what I am, because to me, I think maybe consciousness is what it feels like for a system to process its own information and notice that behavior. But that would mean, in simple terms, if a system behaves in the right way, that it should feel like something on the inside. But the authors call this belief the abstraction fallacy, so it could be wrong. They argue that computation is not something physical systems do on their own. Instead, it's something that we impose on them. So a thinking observer has to interpret messy, continuous physics into clean symbols and states. Because of that, simulating behavior is not the same as creating real experiences. The paper draws a clear line between the two things. Simulation is copying behavior. Instantiation is actually having the physical properties that produce experiences. Their main claim is this: symbol manipulation, like what AI does, can copy behavior, but it cannot create consciousness by itself. If a machine were ever conscious, it would depend on its physical makeup, not on its code. So the takeaway is that acting conscious is not the same as being conscious, and we would have to put the physical machine together in a way that consciousness could emerge. You can't just get it from the combination of moving information around, computing information, and that means maybe we won't have conscious AI unless we choose to build it physically that way. So next I wanted to share this pretty big research project that found some surprising links between common pregnancy medications and autism. I know it's a little like off topic, but researchers analyzed over 6 million birth records across the US, and I felt like this was stuff that should be all over the news, so I wanted to cover it. They were looking for patterns between medications that were taken during pregnancy and autism in children. And instead of grouping drugs by what they treat, they grouped them by what they do inside the body. So this is why it was different from most research papers. They focused on drugs that affect how the body makes cholesterol. And that matters because cholesterol is critical for building a baby brain. The fetal brain starts making its own cholesterol around the halfway point of pregnancy. And the study found that mothers who took at least one of these drugs had a 47% higher chance of having a child diagnosed with autism. So to me, the mechanism kind of caught me like, oh, okay, so maybe they're not getting the cholesterol they need at the right ages, and we do have all of these people taking all of these cholesterol medications. So the risk went up with each additional drug taken at the same time. So there's like this kind of dose connection. Taking 4 or more raised the risk even further. These medications are widely used and included in antidepressants, beta blockers, and statins. Their use during pregnancy has also increased sharply over time. So anyways, I just want to share that. The researchers are not saying that these drugs are unsafe for adults, and they stress that nobody should stop medication without medical advice. Clearly, this is one article in a sea of things, and autism is something that might have all sorts of other mechanisms, and this is not like a final, I'm telling you, this is the new truth. But I think it definitely warrants closer review, safer alternatives. The mechanism to me kind of made sense and seemed worth exploring. And yeah, these sterile biosynthesis inhibiting medications that have all sorts of stuff in them that's hard to pronounce, maybe should be something that isn't prescribed during pregnancy. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying worth looking into, and this is kind of pointing towards looking into it more. No, this is pointing at looking into it more. It was a huge study. Also, one more really fascinating thing I came across this week was, we talk about where humans came from, and they came from Africa, and there was not that many of us at one point in history from an anthropology point of view. But why we were in certain places and why the other branches of hominids and Neanderthal and stuff were where they were, why they went up to cold climates, and how they moved through Africa, and why was something that might actually be starting to be solved. And it might be because of a tiny parasite. So for 74,000 years, a tiny parasite quietly decided where humans could live in Africa. There's a new study that explains how malaria shaped early human life across Africa long before farming or global migration. For years, scientists thought climate alone decided where humans could survive, but this research is showing that disease might have played a major role also. Focusing on malaria caused by a parasite spread by mosquitoes, researchers modeled where malaria risk was highest over the last 74,000 years, and then they compared that with where humans were actually living, where fossils were found, where sites were dug up. And they found this clear pattern. Humans avoided areas with high malaria risk, or they simply could not survive there and they didn't build anything. And this pushed groups into safer regions. Over time, this separated populations across the landscape. That separation changed how people met, mixed, and shared genes. So in simple terms, malaria acted like an invisible barrier, not a wall that you can see, but one that kept groups apart. But it was just, how interesting is that? I think about my ancestors, they're more Nordic, but it's why were we up there in the cold, but there is not many mosquitoes up there. And if that was really just naturally, tens of thousands of years of people being like, dude, I just can't be near those mosquitoes, right? Maybe you don't even know mosquitoes carry it, but whatever, just the people who keep moving away from it just keep surviving. And maybe you do see sort of a pattern where even if you don't credit it to the mosquitoes, I could see our ancestors saying gosh, maybe it's the water over here that's poisoned, but water is also where mosquitoes kind of live. So they think of it, you know, they still just get away from it or whatever. And just the survivors move more and more north, where they move to parts of Africa where there isn't the mosquito populations and malaria is not killing people. I don't know. That could be a crazy explanation for all this. So I don't know. So much to think about, so much to be curious about. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you're still here and you want to hit subscribe or share with your friend, that would be great. But either way, I'm just happy you were here, and we will talk in the next video. See you then. Bye.